guys, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Glo Gordon, CEO of MATRIXX Software, a global leader in 5G monetization solutions for the telecom industry. Glo has also won Executive of the Year recently, awarded by the Stevie International Business Awards for her achievements that have helped MATRIXX Software grow, increase new customers, and also drive an increase in headcount. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Glo and finding out a little bit more about her role at MATRIXX. And also we're going to talk about the power of leadership and leading an organisation through its transformation phase. So welcome to Giant Talk, Glo. It's really nice to have you with us for today's episode. Please can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm Glo Gordon. I'm the CEO of MATRIXX Software today. I am a sociology major from Santa Barbara and grew up in sales pretty much. So go-to-market's been my focus, and I'm really excited about what we're doing at MATRIXX. So looking forward to our discussion today.
Thank you, Glo. So let's dive straight in and talk about your role as CEO of MATRIXX. And I'm interested to hear about what attracted you to this role and what were and are your goals and priorities.
Yeah, so I was on the board, and we had been traditionally led by our co-founders, actually. So Dave Labuda, who is one of the founders, was the CEO. And we decided as a board, it was time to focus more on making the pivot to scale. Dave had built a great product. So now we were ready for scale. It was proven out there. So I joined from the board, and now we are in our growth mode. So I was also the CRO for the first 2 years and the CEO. So it was a really fun time to get the company ready for hyperscale. So Dave is on the board. He's also our chief scientist, and I took over as CEO to drive that.
So it sounds like a really exciting time, and it's already been 2.5 years, almost 3 years coming up. So you joined back in January 2020, right before we hit with the pandemic, and there was, a few conversations around the pandemic, but we didn't quite know the sort of scale of what was coming, and something that we couldn't really plan for. How did this affect your goals and priorities? And if it did, how did you sort of cope with it?
Yeah, so that was an interesting time. So I was brand new CEO. I just made my first trip out to visit one of our sites in London, in Ipswich. And when I was on my way to Milan, I was redirected home because that's where the hotspot for COVID was. So we came back and we basically buckled down and didn't travel for the next couple of years, as we all know. We weren't sure what was going to happen. So we had to make sure that we regrouped to conserve cash, lengthen our runway. Our employees participated in that. And we just didn't know what to expect. We learned how to work remotely, and we had one of our best years ever, surprisingly. What we offer really was super helpful and valuable to folks going through the same thing, since we are a digital offering that doesn't require going into a store. You can basically self-serve and still have communications. That became something very attractive out there. So we leaned into that, and we basically didn't travel, and now we're starting to open that back up again. But mainly conserving cash and making sure that the company could weather the storm. That was our main priority while trying to also run a business. It was an intense learning time, and one that I reflect back on a lot, and what we didn't expect, and what has happened, and how do we respond to that, and then how has it changed how we work today. So it was a good experience in some regard.
Yeah, I was just, as you was talking, I was just thinking about, now being able to reflect back and take out the positives and the learnings from what was a difficult period for many organizations. But as you said, not being able to travel didn't hinder, your organization and the nature of the organization too much. You talk about staying focused, and one of the areas that you talk about is the North Star. And I just wondered if you could tell us what you mean by this. It's a term that we use quite a lot at There Be Giants, and something that we talk to our clients about in the North Star. So I just wonder if you could, what does this mean to you, the term?
So we developed 3 priorities when I took on the CEO role. One was North Star. The other one is rating fans for, basically nurturing our customer base and making sure we have renewals and net retention is where it needs to be. And also that, we have a highly referenceable customer base. The third one is culture, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. North Star was a way for us to focus. And as a startup, a private startup in Silicon Valley, one of the most important things is the ability to say no to certain things because you want to do everything. We decided to get very, very focused. So our product leader and our marketing leader developed a plan around the opportunity that would best suit what we have to offer. So who are the targets? What are we selling? What do we charge for it? What will customers pay? And then what is the list that sales can go hunt on? So these prospects need to be winnable, worth winning, where we can serve the customer well and have a referenceable base, turning them into raving fans. So that's really just how we got super, super focused. And everybody understands that North Star is where we operate. And if you want to operate off the North Star path, there's an exception process, just to show why this would be a good opportunity that doesn't sit squarely in our sights, but it might have some other value and we can serve the customer well. We'll entertain those. But this is just our way of being very focused.
Mm-hmm. I like the terms that you use, the North Star and the Raven fan. And yeah, we'll definitely touch on culture a little bit later because I know that's a really important area for you. And obviously you've increased the headcount and you have, we'll touch on it later, but I know that you have referrals from current employees to bring on new employees. So yeah, interested to talk a little bit more about that. I was wondering if you use at MATRIXX a goal setting framework in terms of being able to stay focused on your strategic priorities and in order to keep the team aligned. And if you do, could you just tell a little bit about that or what framework you use?
So we have designed something that we call metrics that matter. And so under North Star Raving Fans and Culture, we have metrics that matter. And we've created dashboards that show progress. And every month we meet and have an operations review where all of the leaders or their proxies share how we're doing against those metrics that matter, such as revenue growth or NRR, new business goals that are coming in, time to value for our customers, launching our platform and activating their subscribers. Employee metrics, as you mentioned, we have more than half of our employee hires come from internal referrals. And so we keep track of those kinds of things. And so it's a dashboard-driven monthly operations review that we're pretty religious about and we report out on. So that helps us course correct early or have the discussions that we need to. And anybody in the company, as long as their manager is okay with it, they can come to this meeting and listen to us talk about the business. Sometimes they'll present, or we may call on them just to give us feedback on certain ideas that we have. So that's an ongoing practice that's been in place since early 2020. That's how we do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know that another area that you're, in terms of your leadership style is having this open lines of communication and being able to, have other people in the business or anybody in the business join and have an input, I think is really important. And that collaboration as well between people across teams and that cross-functional collaboration. What qualities do you think are the most important to becoming a successful leader? I know it's quite a broad question, but if you're able to sort of narrow down some key qualities that you say are essential.
So I believe, just kind of building on what you said a minute ago, I do believe that most of the best ideas come from all levels within the organization. So accessing that and being able to put those ideas in play requires, leadership to be approachable, humble, to listen, and truly take these ideas in and provide those platforms so that those ideas can be submitted. The most gregarious people sometimes can get their ideas out there, but some of the best ideas come from some of the quiet people, and you want to give them that opportunity and that voice to hear their great ideas. So I think humility, listening, being approachable and open, to me, that just keeps us all going in the same direction, and people feel a part of the business because they truly are. I also think that balance in life helps us be better at work and everywhere in our lives. So exercise, sleep, water, it makes us all better, and we're able to contribute more. And so giving people balance is also something I think is important. As an example, we take every other Friday off of Zoom. There's just no Zoom calls every other Friday. And I think it's informally adopted as most Fridays now. And that just gives people the break so they can go do the things they need to do and be happy at home. So I think all of those things just go into the human element. We are human first, and then we bring our great ideas to work and bring our best version of ourselves and being able to contribute. I think you have to create that environment so that those things are possible. So that's how I'd answer that one.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard you say before, Glo, is that, if everything happens in a vacuum at the top, it's harder for the rest of the company to follow. And I think, you touched on ideas coming from people at all different levels of the organization without having a culture in place where it's not a psychological safe environment, which it sounds like you definitely have that right environment in place. You wouldn't get those people come forward and offer their ideas. So I think that human element and culture is so important, which leads me on to we wanted to find out a little bit more about the culture at MATRIXX Software. So in terms of when you joined MATRIXX and the culture, I know you was already a part of the organization before you joined as CEO. What was the culture like? Has it changed much? Have you, has anything been implemented differently in terms of when you joined that sort of changed the culture at all?
I think the culture at MATRIXX was great when I got here, and I think I inherited a strong culture. There's a strong bond because people had worked together for a long time, and so I think that what I inherited was a jewel, and it was my responsibility to take it forward and not let anything, happen that would take it backwards. So I'd say that we have just taken it to the next level. We've had great support from our co-founders. They've been here since the very, very beginning, and they're very involved in the business. And they've, evolved with the changes and embraced what's next. And I think that helps the troops that have been here with our founders for the longest. And then we brought in new people that could integrate into the culture that fit the culture that I'm looking to build. And I know that ELT and the whole company is looking to build. So we've grown a lot, and, we hired, about half of our company. We hired in the last 18 months, right? So we've doubled in size pretty much. So bringing in people that can integrate in and participate and continue to be productive and want to work together, that's usually a challenge. I think we found that to be something that worked really well for us in the last couple of years.
And, the percentage of employee referrals as well is just a testament to that. I think what more can you say? And if you have your own employees and recommending and referring, it says a lot about the culture, which is great. So
that's right. That's right. It's one of the metrics that matter around culture. There's actually two. So one is, how are we doing against the great resignation trends in the Silicon Valley? And the other one is, how many of our new hires are coming in from different sources. And one of the sources I love to see is that more than half, and I think last time I looked, it was 75% of our new hires as we scale come from other employees who have brought their friends and family in. And that to me is huge. So we're ahead of the trends. We're having the domain expertise that we have in telco is not an easy it's not an easy thing to do to build, because it's a specific skill set. And so, every person that comes in that's got that expertise is not going somewhere else or to one of our competitors. And so that also it's just great, right? We have opportunities and people are coming in and they're contributing, and we're really enjoying that.
It's great, and it's interesting to see just how much further you can grow, and there's huge aspirations there, and it's going in the right direction. The amount that you've grown in the past, as you said, 18 months is fascinating. So sounds great. I like to leave our listeners with some sort of lasting tips from yourself or pieces of advice. And I thought it would be good if you're able to share some of your sort of learnings along the way during your successful leadership career that you can share with our listeners.
I think your brand is everything, and who you are will carry with you through your career. So as an example, I'm much later in my career than you are. And something that, I do share a lot with generations behind me is nurture your network and be thankful and grateful for the people who help you along the way, and show your appreciation. Sometimes there are some selfless acts out there. People go out of their way to help you, and they may need you in the future. And so I don't wait for that return of the favor. I mean, send a bottle of wine, send them to a spa, for half a day. Do something that shows how much you appreciate what people do for you along the way, because you will stand out. You may think it and feel it, but they will never know it unless you show it. So show your appreciation, be humble about that. And then also pay it forward when others need, someone to support them, or feedback or development. Take those opportunities to pay it forward. I think that, I run into people, the longer I'm in my career, I run into people from decades ago that have influence in the things that I care about. And they don't really remember what our interaction necessarily was, but they do remember how they feel about me. And I remember how I feel about them. And that that will come up eventually in life. The older I get, the smaller the world gets. So I can't say that enough. So your brand is everything, and just be consistent about who you are. And that will resonate throughout your whole career. And also the other piece that my mom gave me some great advice. She said, expectations are the root of everything. So conditioning people before you give them an answer, good or bad, or, strong or not what they want. Conditioning and setting expectations and making sure that those things are in line along the way. That is the root of being happy or being sad or being disappointed. To avoid those things, just make sure expectations are out there and clear. So those are the two things I would say.
Yeah, thank you. You can't go wrong with some advice from your mom. You always need some advice. And I think the showing your appreciation and nurturing your network, and I think that's a really nice bit of advice that you've just shared there, and obviously building your brand. I think, like you said, it's the little things, but also being humble about it. And I think that's it's really important, and it doesn't take a lot. So I'm definitely going to remember that. Thank you, Glo, for joining me for an episode of Giant Talk. It's been really fascinating to hear more about yourself, about MATRIXX, and the role that you play at MATRIXX, and the culture that you've inherited, but also continuing to build upon. So it's been a really interesting conversation. And thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us for another episode of Giant Talk. As always, if you have any feedback or if you'd like to get in touch, please do email us at grace@therebegiants.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly.